This is really the essence, of course, of meditation, right? It's exposing ourselves to the moment in a conscious way, right? I'm going to just sit down and open. And of course, right here is where so many meditators, there's this, it's a very innocent thing. We could call it an innocent mistake. I did it myself. But you can sit down to meditate, and if you're not careful, it can kind of become this fairly quickly a kind of cerebral event because you sit down and you go, okay, this is what I want to happen, or this is a meditative state I'm going to try to get into. Not that you're necessarily saying these things in your head, but we're often acting that way. And so we're trying to do this whole thing where we're trying to adjust ourselves into the meditative mindset, and we're preparing, and there's this whole thing that can happen. But when you've walked a few hours out in the mountains and you just lay down in the grass or on a warm rock and you just take in the sun and you feel that breeze and you hear that stream or you hear the birds here or there, and your senses are just naturally open. Right? There's not some big preparation thing we have to do to get there. It's just, and we open and we open. And it's like we let the outside world in, right? In meditation, it's still good to open this way. It's fine to let the outside world in, but we're really letting the inside world just arise more into its own consciousness. So that's sort of a little or a long introduction to different ways of listening. And the reason I emphasize this is because what I found is the quality with which we listen or engage in anything, right? It could be anything, really dictates how much we receive back from it. Right? And this could go for a Dharma lecture. It could go for anything you do, any task around the house, any job. That when we really open ourselves to what we're doing, those are the moments when we tend to also receive, and sometimes in some quite unexpected ways. And of course, if we can listen from a quiet mind, remembering that we can always go back and get our analytical mind making its critiques and judgments. We can always do that later if we want to do that, which is totally fine if we feel that's necessary. But in the moment, just opening the whole body, listening with the body. And don't even worry if you think you understand what that means, or if you feel quite confused, like, what does he mean listening with the whole body? It's really listening with all your senses. And if you just hold that intention over the days, it will start to clarify for you what that means, because it's actually not very complicated. We do it often without knowing, like I said, when we lay down in some really relaxed way, or have you ever just like sat outside, protected from the rain, and or inside, and you're just listening to the raindrops fall? And you're not listening to the raindrops fall in a particularly analytical way. Your analytical mind is not leading then. It's part of the picture, but a much bigger spectrum of your being is involved in something as simple as listening to raindrops. Actually, that's how I came to this kind of listening, because it was raining at the same time my teacher was giving a Dharma lecture. And I recognized that I was listening to the rain in a little bit different way than I was listening to her speaking. I noticed there was a part of me that was listening to her speaking like you'd normally listen to a lecture or something if you're in school or whatever. But I would keep getting I'd noticed this, she had this roof with, I don't think there was much insulation, so the raindrops were quite loud. And I noticed I listened to them in this like really delightful, open, expansive way because we just meditated. And it was almost like the rain was just following through me. And at that moment I thought, what if I listened to her speak in the same way I'm listening to the raindrops fall on the roof? And that was when I first started to discover this other way of listening. And I discovered, wow, when we listen with the whole being, we're engaging so much more of ourselves. And yet we're rarely really encouraged to do that. We're usually encouraged, just listen with your ears, and it starts there. But, everything you hear, it feels a certain way in your heart, feels a certain way in your tummy, your whole being. So anyway, just think of your whole body-mind as a sort of sensing instrument, in a way, for the divine or for life, if you will. That's how existence experiences itself, through these senses.